My name is Robert. I live in sunny Southern California, a place that I hope I never have to leave. But if something were to happen this second, I will survive. I don't believe the world's going to end, but I do believe there's going to be a series of events that may in fact create some reduction of population.
And I have with me today Robert Vicino, and he is the head of Vivos. And Robert, I am so happy to have you on my show today. It is just a pleasure to have you.
Hey, it's my pleasure to be with you. Finally, we've known each other for a few years, and I think it's time to get the message out to your audience.
Yeah, I met you, I think, in early 2015. But, you know, for the listeners, many people might not know what Vivos is. And if you don't mind, I'd love it if you would share with them, what is Vivos and what do you do?
That's a good intro. Vivos is Latin for the living. And that's exactly what we're trying to do, is to help people live through the coming events that, you know, many call the end times. I call them biblical events for sure. And they're going to be serious. They're going to be extremely exterminating. Let's just put it that way. Few people on the planet will survive what's coming. And, you know, I might say that many people, especially listening to you, may believe, well, we don't need what Vivos does. I still haven't told you, have I? Because we have, you know, we believe in the rapture. And so, you know, Jesus is going to save us. And, you know, we'll be taken off the planet before this stuff happens. And I think to some degree, hopefully that's true. But if not, consider Vivos rapture insurance is what I've coined it. And so what exactly is Vivos? We are a global network of underground shelters able to withstand virtually anything and everything. Strategically located, deep underground, with all the provisions and preparations to survive a year or more until it's safe to come back outside. So currently, we've been doing this since '08. Currently, I have space for 10,000 people, and we're about to add another massive bunker to the equation that will give us another 10,000 people of protection. And so they vary. They're in Germany. They're across the United States. We have one underway in South Korea. And we have people from all over the planet asking us to come there and build. And so we're building the network as fast as we can. but there's a lot of constraints, and primarily, willing buyers that are ready, willing, and able to provide for this, what I call life assurance for what is ahead. Something to protect their family if indeed it happens. We hope that it never will. And this may be a form of insurance you never have to use. But if you do, it'll be priceless. And, I kind of equate it to, the event we all know of called Noah and what happened then. And I say to people, if you had the chance, if you were back there, whatever, 11, 10,000, 12,000 years ago, there's disputed timelines there. But if you were with Noah and you had an invitation to get aboard the ark and survive versus not, would you have gotten aboard the ark? And, anybody with a sane mind is going to say, yes, of course. And then to have experienced that event and come out the other side. And that's effectively what Vivos is. The arcs that we're building, we have 575 bunkers in a complex we call Vivos X Point. It was originally a military army fort built in 1942 to store bombs for World War II. And we have these massive bunkers, concrete and steel, covered with earth, that each one at 2,200 square feet can accommodate up to about 24 people. And so people are now buying these bunkers. I'm sorry about that flickering. People are now buying these bunkers and getting them outfitted and prepared to survive as few as a small family to as many as I mentioned, 24 people. It is going to be the largest survival community on the planet. In fact, the county that we're in there, which is Fall River County, South Dakota, has only 3,500 people of population. When we're done, we will have 5,000 people, bigger than the county itself, which we will eventually incorporate, and it will become a town. And effectively, it's a town of like-minded people. Most of them, I would say, are Christian. They all have the desire to protect their families and future generations from what they believe is just ahead, what they believe is coming. And it matches up with my belief, which is what inspired this mission in the first place. So if you like, I'll tell you what that is. What the inspiration was. Back in 1982, I was in my mid-20s, young 20s, and I still am on Friday nights, by the way. And I had a voice that spoke to me in my head. It was live, it was vivid, it was real, it was crystal clear, and it was clear to me that it was some form of the Holy Spirit speaking to me through me. And the message was that I needed to build massive underground shelters for thousands of people to survive an extinction level event that is coming our way. And first of all, I didn't know what an extinction level event was. I had no interest in this field. I was brought up Catholic. I was, at that point, I would say, a strong believer in God, in Jesus, but not in secular religions. And so I didn't have any propensity to believe that, we were in the end times, or even followed any of the scenarios, that everybody has been talking about. And so I was totally unaware. I had a business with 200 employees that I started in my garage. And for what it was. I was successful at that time. And, but it had nothing to do with any of this. And did not have the skill sets to do what I have now done. I didn't know anything about construction, shelters, underground engineering, how to finance it, how to pay for it, how to charge for it, etc. And so, I kind of took that message and said, why me? Why did I get this? At that point, I thought it was a burden. But I didn't brush it off. I gave some serious thought to it, even as to how I would finance it, make it affordable and do it. And secondly, where do I start? And the thought was to find large underground mines that have cavernous areas that we could build out, harden, and including a blast door at the entrance. So I went up to Southern California mountains and took a look around, and there's no such thing as that readily available. So I kind of tucked it in the back pocket and mentioned it to a few people, and they said, that's crazy. This is just crazy. And I thought about it. About every 3 to 5 years, I would mention it to somebody else. And I got the same response each time. And each time I thought of it, I said, my gut tells me I still have time for the event. And the question is, what is the event? And remember, I mentioned the message was that something is coming our way. So the question is, what is something? Where's it coming from? It's not here. It wasn't foreseeing any political event or another world war. I don't believe it's man-made. What was what is in fact coming? I think it's something from out there, the cosmos. Perhaps an asteroid. Perhaps, as the Bible refers to it, wormwood. Others call it Planet X, Nibiru. Whatever you want to call it, something is inbound and heading towards Earth. Whether it's going to hit us or not, I don't know. I don't believe it will. I just believe it comes through the inner solar system and creates huge havoc on Earth because of its magnetic forces, and which could and probably will cause the Earth to have a crustal pole shift of at least 180 degrees, maybe, at least 90, maybe a full 180. And so, if you want to think about that, what are the repercussions? And trust me, they're severe. Few people will survive that. In fact, I read somewhere a while back about Pope John Paul back in 83, I think it was. He was at a conference of bishops in Germany and was asked by one of the bishops, what is the third secret of Fatima? And the Pope's response was, what good would it do for me to satisfy your vicarious interest by telling you that the oceans are going to leave their basins and wash across the land, and millions and billions of people are going to die suddenly? And so effectively, I think he did tell us and tell them what's ahead. I'm sure you and your audience know what about the third secret of Fatima, and which is still yet to have been disclosed by the Vatican. It hasn't yet happened, and it's considered to be horrific beyond anything we can handle emotionally or psychologically. So thus, it's better that we don't know. So, in a nutshell, I don't know what's going to happen, whether it be my belief, and which I just described to you, or the others believe we're heading towards civil war, economic meltdown, World War III, massive earth changes, you name it. Or perhaps it's what's referred to as Armageddon. I don't know. I'm not a psychic. I have beliefs, and they parallel all those things, as do the beliefs of our members. And just to give you an idea, we have well over 100,000 members of people wanting to get into Vivos. And so I hear from them all the time. And when I finally get a chance to sit down and talk with them, they blow me away with what they know, information that they've obtained, and in great detail. So I've learned a lot from my members, but I've also learned a lot from a variety of sources that I tend to attract, be it government, military. I don't want to label some of the other people, but profound insights as to what's ahead and what's coming. Let me just put it to you this way. The country, America, is going through a crisis. It started October 5th, and there's a reason for that date. But I don't know that I want to get into it with you. And it's going to take 5 years. So over the next 5 years, you're going to see the dismantling of America as we know it. And at the end of that is when the big event will happen. And it's not a political event. But so therefore, how much time do we have to prepare, both, spiritually, get square and centered with God, but also physically? To not prepare physically, in my mind, based on everything that's going on and all the signs and all the threats we now face, is reckless. It's absolutely reckless. And, people say to me, well, I'd buy in a minute, but I can't afford it. So what I do every day is try to figure out how to reduce the cost of Vivos so that virtually anybody can afford it and anybody can get in. And we've got it down to $60 a month right now per person, which, should accommodate at least 90% of the population. So a lot of things going on with Vivos. The expansion is unbelievable. I don't know that I clarified. We have one in Kentucky that is yet to be announced. I'll just give you a sneak peek right now. It's 3 million square feet underground with 150 feet of limestone above protecting it, with 30-foot tall ceilings throughout. So you walk inside this place, it's got roadways, ceilings that are 30 feet tall, and then 150 feet of limestone protection above. It's a virtual city. That one is going to be set up differently than any other Vivos because you can drive right in. Right now, giant 18-wheelers are driving in. And part of this facility is used as a warehouse. And so what we're doing is we're going to allow people to drive their RVs, motorhomes into the facility to be parked all in a perfect alignment by plan. So it looks kind of like a marina or, an RV camp, if you will. Vivos will provide everything else: the water, sewage, power, air filtration, the blast doors, hardening of the entire facility, along with dining halls, cafeteria, lounge areas, gym, chapels, medical facilities, toilets, shower areas, so you don't actually have to use your facilities in your own RV. And effectively, your RV will be your living quarters. So whatever quality that is what you get. And you can have as many people as you feel you can fit in that RV comfortably. So let's say it's a 30-foot travel trailer. You should be able to fit 4 people comfortably in there. And we don't care how many people you have aboard. And so there's a lot of details to that, but effectively, this is going to be an underground city. beyond your imagination. You'll be seeing a lot of video on it, a lot of news reports, TV show that is in the works as well, more so for the South Dakota facility. But, the world is very curious about Vivos. And there's a pent up, I guess, concern, fear, gut level feeling that something is indeed about to happen. So, that we're here not to capitalize on people's fears. I've been asked that by many newscasters. And I remember I was on Fox once, and the guy said, "Well, aren't you capitalizing on people's fears?" And I said to him, no, I'm not here to compete with you. I said, you guys do that well. You give us the news, which are usually, negative stories. If it bleeds, it leads. And then you go to commercial. That's where you're making your money. But I don't go to commercial. And I don't promote these bad things. I just resolve people's fears by providing them a solution so that they know that they have a place to go when and if it happens. Everybody talks about bug out, and they got their bug out bag. The only thing they don't have is a place to bug out to. So trust me, heading to the mountains, heading to the desert, or wherever you may be planning to bug out to, is where everybody else is going with their 3-day supply of food. And you got to question, you got to ask yourself, what are you going to do when that stuff runs out? It's going to be a very, very ugly scenario. In fact, let's say we're looking at an EMP, which is considered by the military and Congress to be one of the most likely events to happen in our future. An EMP set off over the center of the United States, if large enough, will take out the lights nationwide. And most people don't understand it's permanent. It's not something you can flip a switch and the lights come back on. It fries every transformer. It will fry. It will fry every power line, circuits everywhere, anything electronic, including perhaps starting fires in your own home, because where those wires terminate, it sparks this massive electromagnetic wave. And so, so we're going to have a party for a couple nights after the lights go out. No, you're not. The lights will not be coming back on. It may take a decade. It may take 2 decades, if ever, to rebuild the system the way it was. So the Brookings Institute did a study and presented to Congress what the likely ramifications of that are. They said, I believe the number was 95% of America will kill itself off before civility starts to come back. Meaning the have-nots are going to be going after the haves. And sooner or later, everybody's a have-not, because there's no food, no water, no sewage, no communication, no transportation. I'm sure you've heard those scenarios. But eventually, anybody that is not protected underground and perhaps in a Vivos type facility is going to have a very, very hard time defending themselves and surviving. So, thus one reason for Vivos, but there's plenty. So anybody that wants to learn more, they can just go to terravivos.com, which is Terra, Earth, living, .com, if you will, interpreted. Was that a short and sweet introduction?
Yes, thank you so much. And I do want to mention to everybody watching, you've been on Fox News, the History Channel, HBO, National Geographic, The Guardian, GQ, RT, Netflix, everywhere. So, that's just a few of them, because everyone is interested in this. And I loved what you said to the guy on, I think you said it was Fox News,
Right.
when he asked if you were profiting basically off people's fear. I love your response to him. That's a good one. But I want people to be more aware of this. And I've been talking to you, like we said early on, since I believe it was early 2015, maybe late 2014. I'm not completely sure, but for a while. And I want more people to be aware of this. And I'm going to be showing during this interview some clips from your website as well as from videos. And those of you watching have probably already seen them throughout the video. So it's magnificent. It doesn't even compare or come close to describing these facilities that you've created and the hard work. I can't even imagine doing something like that or what all is involved. But very interesting and long overdue for me to share with my viewers, of course. So I wanted to give you an opportunity before we end the show. What are your final thoughts? Something that you really feel like you want to share with the people who are watching this, or your advice or what you would say to them?
Well, there are many things. The main thing is prepare. And I don't mean just spiritually, but it's time to physically prepare. So be that for bunkering in place, sheltering in place, or having a place to go to. But there's no substitute for the real thing. A real shelter that will survive virtually every event, all of these events. Also, I want to tell you, there's a lot of cynics out there, and I'm sure there's a few in your audience. And so we can handle that. I don't mind, because we really can't accommodate everybody. You know, at current ratio, we're only accommodating 1 in every million people on the planet. So that is infinitesimal. You got to ask, what is everybody else going to do? You know, the government knows what's coming. They've been preparing for it for 30 years. Those deep underground military bunkers, DUNs, do exist. They're extremely large. The one in Denver under the airport is real. Others up and down the Rockies are real. Underground subway tunnels, monorails to take government officials from place to place to evacuate them out of Washington all the way to Denver is real. And here's the tell that really made me start to worry. And that is that about 3 years ago, they had requisitions for $1 billion worth of freeze-dried food. Those requisitions were filled and trucks were loaded, and the truckers delivered the food to these underground facilities through tunnels, some of which they claim were 100 miles long. So they had no idea where they were going once they entered the tunnel. But they went in, they found a loading dock, they unloaded or offloaded, and they left. And so what bothers me about that is, if you're going to build a shelter and you're going to fully prepare it, what's the last thing you do at the last possible moment? And that is you stock it with food, because food is the item that has the shortest shelf life. And so when they stocked it with food a few years ago, all of them, that tells me the clock is now ticking, that they're expecting something very soon. And so a lot of people will say, well, if that were true, the government would tell us about it. And the answer is no, they won't, because the government cannot tell you about a problem that they don't have a solution for. Doing so will only create chaos. If they told you on a certain date, this is going to happen in our future, everything could stop right now, depending on how severe that'll be.
Oh, you're talking panic, extreme hysteria, chaos, everything.
You're talking no rule of law, raping, pillaging, people not going to work, not going to school, why bother, et cetera, et cetera. So in a sense, they feel that they're stewarding us in the proper way by not telling us. But trust me, they know. Don't listen to what they're not saying, or look at what they're saying. Look at what they're doing. And that is, they've bunkered up for some reason, deep underground bunkers for thousands of government officials and certain elite members. So, Vivos is the alternative to that. We're not the government, but we have comparable shelters that nobody else can provide or is even thinking of providing. So, let me just leave you with this regarding the cynics. I did an NPR interview recently, and the host of that show was radio, and she was in San Francisco, extremely, what's the word, liberal? And I was in San Diego, which is where I live, in a studio, and it was being done by satellite. And so I'm in a sound booth and looking at the engineer through the glass. And I knew she was going to do a gotcha because that's the point of view that they have. And so I was ready for it. And she said to me, well, aren't you kind of like a modern day Noah? And see, what they're looking for is for me or anybody they can to kind of label them and to, see if they can pop that big bubble of ego. And so my response was, no, I'm not Noah. I don't aspire to be Noah, but I do know of this. This shit is going to happen. Wow. She was blown away. The engineer, as I mentioned, was there listening, and he gave me a couple thumbs up, and he was cracking up because he too knew it was going to be a gotcha. Anyways, a few minutes later, she asked another question. She goes, well, you really are a prophet. And so I said, no, I'm a not-for-profit. I haven't made a dime at this. I've invested more in Vivos than I will ever take out. Fortunately, I'm in a position now, 35 or whatever years after the original inspiration, to do this. So I now understand why I was given the challenge, the mission. And for me, there's no turning back. There's no escaping it. I've even thought of retiring and maybe moving. I look all around the world. Where's a safe place to go? I can't find one, but I can't even retire. I am obligated to do this and see it through. And so I will. And for the rest of everybody that isn't aboard, enjoy the ride because it's coming. So I welcome any and all of your audience to join us, or at least to look into it.
Yes, and there's no doubt, whether people want to agree with you or not, or doubt your intentions or not, as you said, they were questioning you on Fox News. No matter what, we know it's coming. The Bible tells us it's coming. We can look around and we can see the signs of things that the Bible has told us about many years ago that are coming to pass right now before our eyes. So all sorts of people are warning and saying that it's coming soon. The Lord even spoke to me, I think it was like a month ago, woke me up in the middle of the night and gave me a strong message that we are in the season of fall, the falling away, the wearing down of the saints. And he said that winter was just right around the corner, which represented death or tribulation. That's what he told me. And people who've watched that video can tell that the Holy Spirit is really speaking through me as I'm sharing the message. So
let me put it to you this way. If you are meant to be raptured, if that is going to happen and you're on his list, you'll be found in a Vivos shelter or underground. And he'll save you. But if not, like I said, it's irresponsible to your family, to your children, not to provide, not to prepare, and to do it in a proper manner. And I'm not selling Vivos. Dig a hole in your backyard. Go find a cave. But just make sure it's done right and it's adequate. So, a lot of people don't believe this stuff is going to happen. And so I'm very cautious in my daily discussions when I go to a coffee shop, for example. But I like to say that everybody is going to be a believer when it does. All right. They're going to look up and they're going to see it, or whatever form it's going to take. They're going to believe at that moment. Unfortunately, it'll be too late for them.
and you know many people, so I think that you know what you're talking about. And the link has appeared throughout this video on the screen, and it will be hyperlinked beneath the video in the video description to go visit terravivos.com. Robert, I just want to thank you so much for taking time out to be on my show today. And I ran very late and you waited for me patiently. I appreciate that. But thank you so much. I really, really, really appreciate it.
You are a godsend, and your audience needs to know this. So I'm happy to be here and love to come back.
Well, I would love to have you back, and happy for your appearance today. God bless you. And if you'll stay on with me in just a moment here, thank you to all of you out there watching and listening. Please share this video. Help me fight the censorship that is taking place on YouTube. Share this video if you can do nothing else. And also, I'm mostly 100% viewer supported. So if you feel led to give a gift to this YouTube channel, you can do so via my PayPal or my P.O. Box. The information is on the screen and below the video. But you can do your part immensely just by sharing the videos. So thank you to all of you out there watching. God bless you, and God bless you, Robert. And have a beautiful, beautiful day.